is the part where we say all the really important stuff.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm on your show. I'm trying to support the team by letting you plug your own shit, Maddo. I'm here for you, buddy.
Reconnection, you're awesome.
And then
Reconnection is.
And then when it comes back, we have to finish up by going. No
this
way.
This is the part where we share the terrible secret of Imperium News, and we go, well, we're sharing this because no one will ever believe you.
Turns out Imperium News was... So you're saying Imperium News was behind Lenny Bucks all along, and the war was just a front to get them banned?
We should be back up. Can somebody check?
Yeah, but you shouldn't talk about that now. We're back live, I think.
Yeah, all that top secret stuff has to stop. We're back. All right, sorry about that. We had a brief disconnect. We're using new technology. But the last question that was posed was that Eve News 24 seemed to get the news out quickly, and then Crossing Zebras was more of a magazine, and then right in between there was the Mittani.com, now Imperium News, and if there was going to be any changes to that. And yes, there is. I guess I'll take this one first, and Ryan, you can kind of finish up the stuff I missed.
Sounds good.
But one of the things that we're really emphasizing with recruiting writers now, and also with the tools that we're building, is we want to get a more immediacy to it, because the game used to be about tell me the story of what happened, and now it's kind of like tell me what's happening now, and tell me what's going to happen. And so we want to make that shift along with the game. So we have some tools that allow us to live blog fights as they happen. We have some things in progress, like we're putting together correspondence that will photograph it while it's happening. So we're going to get a lot more urgent with the news, but that's a slow process. We've just barely switched over. So we're still building staff, we're still building tools, but I expect by early February, we should be in a completely different place than we are today, even though things are going really well today. But would you want to say something about that, Ryan?
I'd say the other part of it as well is that we're taking a professional attitude with how we're managing Imperium News. Accountability is the watchword from the top down, and that means consistency. That means quality from start to finish, and that means we are going to aim for setting a high bar and publishing often. We're not going to rush stuff out. And as a matter of fact, actually, Matterall, Reeve, and Arendis in the editorial team absolutely hit it out of the park with their spotlight-style expose on the Olivia scam. There is a place for fast news, which is this is happening now. But I think more than ever, there is a place for just maintaining quality and consistently good coverage. And if we can be in a place where something happens and we know that we are going to have someone on each major event, then that is going to be pretty fantastic. And again, I would like to encourage anybody at all interested to drop by our Discord and say hello. You don't have to commit to being a writer, but it's all part of building community. So I believe that Apothony has something to say.
Well, I was going to say that one of the things I quite miss that I see less of these days, and kind of the heyday of this happening was really only when I started playing the game, so I only caught the tail end of it, is when the FCs and the major players would write up their own battle ports publicly after a fight or a war, on the old Kugu, on Felheap Challenge, and you can have all the battle reporters in the world, like Salvain has done it for a bunch on Eve News 24, and you guys do it on Imperium News as well for a bunch of fights. That's fantastic and great to read and interesting to find out what's going on, but I think that there's definitely something special and something very different about hearing it from the FC, from the campaign commander, from the guy in charge of one of the sites, where they go through their thought processes and what their perspective of the fight was. Because when you read both sides, for example, you can really see which side had what intel and how the two counterplayed, and you can get a lot more depth about the battle from hearing it from those people. But those people in those positions seem to be less willing or have less time, or some reason are less likely to write about that these days. I'd love to see that brought back.
I'd just like to comment on the thing that Ryan said, that the professionalism, and I actually see that in EN24 and Crossing Zebras as well. The point is that if you look at it in a historical perspective, that was really what changed, right? You didn't have the staff thing that we have now in these groups. It's no longer 1 or 2 man projects. The Tribune used to be pretty much just Mr. M and a few helpers, and the same with the Guardian when it was started and when Shah took it over. And it's always been like small, more professional blog versions, right, of private blogs. And as Lockfox was mentioning, private blogs is not really a thing anymore. It needs to be aggregated into these professional media entities that we now have, a triumvirate of some sort.
Is there room for private blogs anymore? Because that was a big part of EVE before with Crazy Canucks blog.
Specialist stuff I think still survives, right? So, things like Lockfox and Nosy and all that still survives and will be an important part forever, because it's not something that big houses can cover.
Yeah, there's a type of we could go into a long thing about brand building, but I will hold myself back. That being beholden to a aggregator like your EN24s, your Crossing Zebras, or Imperium News Network also sort of puts you under the umbrella of whatever their meta is, which can be a blessing and a curse, is kind of the opinion I have. That, like, if you're starting out and you don't really have an audience at all, it's excellent. It's great to get your stuff in front of a lot of people, and getting on the right product that fits your style is really great. But like, after a while, you become a piece of whatever that aggregator is. You are a Crossing Zebra guy, or you're a Imperium News Network guy, and that can be a little obnoxious when you're trying to, for instance, in my case, I try really hard to make general economic news good for everyone, without that's as impartial and data driven as possible. But if I'm under a banner of a particular side in a war, well, then all of a sudden I am some propaganda mouthpiece, even though the numbers don't change, and I'm not actually beholden to whatever the editor's alignment is. Some of that gets pulled away. So having the private blog and not being beholden to any of the meta and basically standing on your own is great, but getting traffic to those is getting harder and harder, honestly.
Yeah,
totally.
Well, we're looking at partnerships on that, by the way, with bloggers. We're looking at, we do a lot of original news, and I'm really happy to say that. We did investigations, as Ryan pointed out, and we do a lot of good pieces that are just, from the writer's perspective, like Thel. But we're
I think before you go on, I'd like to point out that one of the things that Locke was talking about, the whole brand thing, I think it's important that the news sites are careful not to wrap their brand around these voices and actually put them a little bit more forward, because there's so many creators that needs more exposure, and their brand is actually almost more valuable than the media house brand, right? And we see similar things in the real world media, where individual bloggers get pulled into these big media houses, and then they're wrapped in that brand, and then their voice gets drowned out, right?
Right.
And I've never found that editors are driving those things. Like, I wrote for the TMC years ago, and I enjoyed doing the work, and it was a great outlet to do the work with. And never internally was anyone like, well, we need it to be like goon-centric. I mean, I wrote a pretty scathing response to the ICE interdiction a couple of years back, and nobody stopped that from going out, even though I basically said in the article, this was leaders washing their hands off the backs of, the line members, blah, 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 blah. And so the appearance and reality are two totally different things. But in this hot take world we live in, it's a little bit harder for some of the readers perhaps to unpin, like, what is propaganda and what is legitimate, and I got to put my tinfoil hat on extra tight today and whatever.
Well, I was more thinking about things that most media houses have a tendency of not linking out of them of their own sites, which is horrible when you're writing research pieces or you're getting stuff from outsourced sources that have more in-depth stuff on their own outlets, right? So in your example, it would be that there would need to be more exposure of the actual Prosper brand, so you point out of the Imperium.
Well, there's ways
side.
to do that. I mean, Lockfox and I actually work together. We'll come to Thel next, but Lockfox and I worked together in a way where he would prepare a small snippet, and then he did it for my podcast. And so we'd have a little financial report on the podcast, which was a news podcast, kind of like this. And but we said catch more of this, more detail, on his brand, basically. So there's a way of kind of mixing the two. There's going to be ways to work together in the future. We're talking to people about working together with them. We want to help promote their brand. At the same time, we want to expose their good work, to our audience, and we want our audience to know that they exist. And there's ways to do that. Thal, you had one thing on this?
On the topic of just kind of bias in news sites, I think a lot of it's not really explicit. Like nobody goes out and says for the most part, I'm going to write a pro test or pro Imperium or pro PL piece. A lot of it just comes from the writers kind of bringing their own views. Imperium or TMC as it used to be historically had a lot of Imperium writers. Even News 24 is pretty PL heavy, Crossing Zebras as well, but none of them, they all do a good job of covering. As long as you kind of take into account different viewpoints, you can really get a complete picture.
Yeah, totally. I agree with that
There's
totally.
no such thing as perfect objectivity. All writers, consciously or not, bring their own biases into a piece, and if you're honest about the perspective that you come from, and you embrace who you are and what you're talking about, you have a much more entertaining piece for the audience to enjoy, regardless of their in-game political affiliation.
And I think that's the important thing to remember, is that a lot of people, we're writing about a game that we play at the end of the day, and people write about the game that we play because they want to share the enjoyment of their experience. It's not intentionally meant to be, some places there are places that, will publish stuff that's clearly meant to attack each other, but it's all part and parcel of the game. But the majority of people that write, the majority of people that enjoy writing on a regular basis, do it because they enjoy telling the stories about what they're doing. And I find that the majority of people that do that just want to tell the sequence of events, and they don't actually mean to do it as part of any propaganda piece or anything like that.
All right. Go ahead, Apoth, and then we'll switch subject.
I was just going to say that one of the things I find quite amusing is that people come at me quite a lot for having crazy PL bias and trying to forward the PL regime. But if you actually read what I write about, I write articles about fitting spaceships. I don't really cover the political scene at all, almost ever. I mean, maybe a bit in AT stuff, but I think that what was being said previously about the perception of reality of bias is you've really got to take what other people say with a grain of salt, and then really read what you want to read and make your own decisions about whether you think this person's got crazy bias or not.
So a couple things to wrap up this section, which went back to the news and the state of the Imperium news and stuff like that. One is I reached out to, I don't know if people used to read this blogger, but she's great. And her blog was called Wench with a Wrench. And she's an ex-EVE player and stuff. She used to be an Adhocracy. Okay, and the last thing is, and this is my favorite part, when writers like myself, and I put myself right in front here, start talking about their work and how it's important and stuff. I always ask someone like Russ, who's a FC, fleet commander out there fighting these big fights, organizing people, and making EVE actually happen. Do you read the news?
Not particularly. I mean, there's no, because there's reason to this in terms of you'll organize a fight and you'll spend 3 hours doing it, and then somebody will push a piece on some news site and it'll be completely wrong, and they'll make no effort to get it right. And there's been more times that it's been wrong than right, and the times that you go in to correct them and be like, oh no, this happened and that happened, they start crying, oh, bias, so on and so forth.
Yeah, let me go on a big rant about how whenever somebody writes about Plex, I just have to roll my eyes and drink something strong.
I mean, you try correcting them and you're going, look, here are the facts. You can't spin the numbers, and they're going, no, this is test bias or whatever. And you're going, all right, whatever, buddy. I tried, I'm not going to bother.
All right. Ryan, you may have one last thing on this, do you?
Yeah, I'll just say, if you come at us saying the Imperium is terrible, You guys all deserve to burn in hell or whatever. Obviously, we're not going to publish that. But anything well reasoned, and this goes for not only political space political articles, but also reviews, news pieces, anything like that. The key is to justify your feelings and generally write well instead of write with raw vitriol. Quality writing wins out over partisan punditry 100 times out of 100. So
actually, Ryan, I would have published a piece because we had somebody write a rant and they said, here, publish this. And I was like, okay. And Ryan talked me off the ledge. But I was like, anything that has a strong point of view is welcome. But yeah, if you're going to rant about things, and including our rants, we've kind of said, hey, we're not going to rant as much anymore. Or if we did, we're not, that's just not productive. It gets a lot of hits, it makes it look like you're doing stuff, but it really is, we have certainly have standards. Anyway, okay, so let's wrap this up. I want to start, take a little break. We're going to watch a little video. We're going to come back and we're going to talk about the Ascension expansion. And we'll be back in just a second. Let's see if this transition works as well as I hope it works. Hey, let's try that again with the sound on.
Matt's doing exactly the same thing I do with OBS every single time.
I need like 8 arms to make this whole thing work. Okay, so there it is, the Ascension expansion that makes EVE free to play. Wrong way to say it. It actually lets you play EVE for free, but doesn't mean that it's free to play like in the traditional sense. EVE is always, walking to its own drum. Right, so the Ascension expansion, I have trouble saying that one, by the way.
Do we have sound?
Yeah, we should have sound.
Yeah, we do have sound.
Yeah.
You're saying in chat we don't have sound.
No, we do.
Well,
we do.
They're just behind. Now they know how far ahead they are. We are. Yeah, so let's talk about that. It's an open forum, so let's.
It's about time.
Yeah, about time what?
It is.
About time people can play.
That they brought in a free-to-play model officially, because basically it's been semi-free-to-play since Plex was brought in, right? It was just a matter of transitioning to a little bit
people
easier
say that, but
or more casual free-to-play, right?
People say that, but it wasn't that easy to get your Plex. And I mean, you would work 3 weeks out of the 4, and what fun is that? Like, it wasn't a...
Well, as I think Javanica was pointing this out, it's really a matter of balancing your expenses, and anyone that balanced their expenses that had played more than 6 months would be perfectly capable of plexing and still should be.
Let's talk a little bit about that, because what have you been seeing economically, LockFox, with this? Because we've seen new players, right? How many new guys have we seen log in? Have we seen the PCUs, the concurrent player stats improve?
Yeah, I haven't been watching the PCU stats directly, but everything looks really great, actually. The numbers are way up, and you can go see them on eveoffline.com, I think is Kriba's site for that.
Correct.
So economically, actually, it was a really hard thing for us to forecast, because going free to play changes a lot of the economics of EVE. The need to grind a Plex becomes a lot easier. The demands of a free to play player are completely unknown, and the impacts of having the extra people, whether they're running the alpha fleets that are low tier, or to back up the high tier Omega player kind of guys. There was just no way to know how the meta was going to shake out ahead of time. And actually, I'm a little bit surprised that we're seeing Plex drop, which I don't think anybody predicted ahead of Black Friday. But well, unless you want to be contrarian, there's always points in being contrarian, right? So the interesting thing is that it looks like we're really demanding cash at the moment, and when you need cash, you wring it out of Plex. Think of Plex as the cash sponge, that when there's extra cash, it goes into Plex, Plex rises, and when you need cash, and whether that's for ECs or for alpha clones coming in to like subsidize their first month, it gets squeezed out again from the Plex. So we're actually seeing Plex drop after Ascension pretty precipitously, and we haven't even seen a Plex sale from CCP for 2 months, which is, well, I'm sure they're really happy about.
Just to defend my coughing, as I think we talked about way back when alphas were announced, and we were discussing what that would do to the economy. I did say that I would believe that the utility of Plex would go away, but this is only as a forced utility, right? As a forced usage. People were forced to use Plex to get the benefits of actually playing the game. Now, what's happened with alphas is that forced utility has gone away. So we're seeing this slump, and I think it's going to behave like a lot of other things in the market. What will happen is that on the other side of that slump, you're going to see that the voluntary usage of Plex might even be stronger than the forced one.
Yeah, when it came to the supply and demand question of how many Plex are actually going to be consumed and burned to make game time, or RM to actually use them and redeem them, I was pretty much expecting things to be almost a wash. I think that will be slightly positive in the longer term, but we're going into kind of a quiet season, and over the holidays, I kind of expect people to stay free to play until the brand new year. So the new demand won't ramp up, I don't think, until January. But instead, so that's the baseline, right? The baseline of Plex sort of tracks your player count and player activity, but the need to liquidate cash, to have cash to go participate in EVE, is trumping the utility of the game time that it's also worth, which is the interesting part, that we're not seeing
I can't put you on TV,
a lot of new Plex hit the market,
but
we are seeing prices drop as people are selling off, people are holding back consuming them, and we might be back in a sub-billion Plex in the new year, and early in the new year, if
I have a specific
the way we expect them.
I have a specific question for you, LockFox, about the fact that a lot of the players that I see coming back, well, of course there's a lot of brand new players, but some of the ones that are coming back are old players, so you're seeing a massive potential reactivation of ISK that was considered slightly fallowed, right? You're seeing a lot of people coming in that have very massive wallets, maybe even have storage of Plex available. So how much of that do you think can be modeled, or can we have some sort of estimate on when that is going to hit the market and be utilized? Because as you said, the Christmas slump is a thing. Is it after that where we're going to see people go crazy?
Well, so that's actually going to be the interesting part. So if for those who don't read the economic numbers, the general guys here in the chat here, the number that you want to look at if you're interested in this particular conversation is what's called the active ISK delta, which is reported monthly in the economic report from CCP. And that talks about cash that is essentially removed from the game. Think of it like burying gold in your backyard. It doesn't really count as a liquid asset anymore because you have to unbury it. And that's a really sloppy way to think of it, but that's sort of a... It's
a very, very good way of thinking of it. It's very Romanesque and very Imperium law. As accounts get activated, and Quant actually tweeted about this probably right after Vegas that
CCP Quant.
CCP Quant that the stat for activist delta will need to be recalculated anyway because without the ability to say, oh well, he hasn't paid for his account in 3 months or whatever, we're going to stop accounting that cash in our thing. Well, alphas make that meaningless. Make that distinction meaningless. So I'm interested to see where we go. I think that a lot of the big wallet people reactivating. If you have taken a long leave of absence from the game, it is traditional to convert your cash wealth into Plex, because 9 times out of 10, the Plex will rise in value. This is not inflation, by the way. We're not taking an hour to talk about inflation. It's not inflation.
No, we're not, definitely. Wait, let me interrupt you for a second. We're going to introduce Johnny Pugh, who's joining us here. Let me get him unmuted. But go ahead and finish your point, Lockfox.
Sure. So like it's been tradition to hold large amounts of Plex, large amounts of cash in Plex. That when you say, okay, well, I'm quitting for a year. When I come back, I'll just liquidate Plex as I need them. It tends to be 9 times out of 10 a decent return. And it's so easy to put cash into and take cash out of Plex, so that you don't even have a time horizon like you would with other items where you're like, oh, well, I'd love to go sell 1 trillion TRIT, but I can only sell like 100 million units a day. And oh man, this is a real drag trying to get my cash back out again. So I think that that's going to drive Plex supplies up. We haven't seen that yet. There's a particular signal I'm looking for in the Plex supply numbers to say that big players have come back and they are moving the available number of Plex on the market, despite the lack of a Plex sale, is sort of the signal I'm looking for. And we haven't seen that yet. The supplies are staying relatively stable. Nothing huge to report on the supply side, just that the price keeps falling.
That's all pretty interesting. The economics of what's happening is interesting. It's war and a lot of new people all at the same time.
Now, I'm still disappointed in some of the PvP numbers I've been seeing post-Ascension. I actually expected things to be hotter than they are still. And for all of our talk of NC having their war and FCON and Tri duking it out, I'm not seeing a lot of the PvP impacts yet, so I still think we're a bit cold on the PvP front.
Still low SP. Still low. They haven't trained that stuff yet. So the alphas are not really matured yet.
Well, but I should be able to see their counts, right? Like that should show up in zKillboard. The number of ships being destroyed should be tracking up. I don't care if the value is not tracking up. The number of ships being destroyed should be up significantly this week as people are either derping their way into low sec for the first time or joining up with PvP fleets and tackle ships or whatever.
But on scale, they've only just finished the career missions and gotten into Corp, right? So the alphas will not hit those numbers until like this weekend, like from from now when we're talking, and then rest of the weekend, right?
Yeah, and next weekend tends to be the lowest week of the entire year for PvP. So we're gonna have to just sit on our hands and wait, because people tend not to play when they're fighting with their IRL relatives rather than with their space friends.
All right, Johnny Pugh, I want to say hello to you. Can you introduce yourself?
Good morning. I'm Johnny Pugh, EVE Online video creator on YouTube.
There's that famous voice. Now, I've noticed you did a lot of stuff early on the test server for the expansion as it was coming through. What have you been finding now that it's out?
Now that it's out, I noticed that NPC mining ops are everywhere. And on the test server, they were pretty sparse, but now I'm finding them all the time. I'm using a bomber to kill them solo.
Yeah, mining is a big deal right now. Now, I wanted to jump over to Thel real quick. You had something to say about, the expansion?
Yeah, I mean, I just think it's going to be curious to see if there is a much larger influx of alphas. I think right now the newborn player graphs are at about 4,000 every day, which, I mean, that's a good amount, but that's nowhere near as much as we saw at like the peak of World War B, where we were getting 10,000, and especially how many of them stick around and whether or not they convert to Omegas to give some alliance proportionally, say Horde, because they tend to accept more people and have less standards like advantage in the future.
So how are you guys test? Apothony, you know about this sort of thing too. How are you guys all handling new players in your organizations?
Test Dreadit, which is the biggest corp. If you look on our wiki, you can find the requirements. It's 15 mil SP or an active Reddit account. That's not changing for alphas. And that's the same way we've accepted trials if they meet the requirements in the past.
There are some corps that are actively recruiting alphas. I think shout out to Brand New Bros. They're basically the new bro corp of Test right now, and they pull in a lot more newer players than Dreadit does because of very significantly low requirements. But generally, it's up to corps to do what they want to do. Obviously, with alphas, there's a big sort of security thing in terms of spies and people just rolling accounts and sticking them into places. So we have to be wary of that factor too. So we left it to corps to decide what their policies are going to be.
So as a big-time FC running a coalition or an alliance, do you see them fitting into your plans at all?
I think there's going to definitely be a place for them in the future. I just don't know where right now. In terms of the fights that we're having and things like that, obviously they've got the Tech 1 frigates, so on and so forth, but I don't know how effective that's going to be given the numbers that you can field. Usually more is better. So you'd have to field a lot of alphas, and how many alphas show up with this, push is I don't think that's on us.
You know where they'll be really helpful, and Tiberius will agree with me on this, is when they go, "Ooh, look at that ship! It's so giant! Totally. An explosion!"
In fact, actually, there was the cutest thread on Reddit a couple of days ago, actually, where this guy's going, "Oh, I was at my venture today, and I went to a belt and saw the most amazing ship. It was huge." Turns out to be one of the new
porpoises.
What's it called? Yeah, porpoises. And everybody was thinking it was going to be like Tribber's Veldnort or something like that. And it did kind of make me think, hang on a minute, I've kind of forgotten what the wonder was like of this game when I originally started, and I saw my first freighter for the first time, or my first battleship, or remembering the first time I saw a Tengu for the first time, smashing a level 4 mission, and it's great to see that sort of enthusiasm coming back out onto the general media again, like the forums and the Reddit posts and things like that. It's wonderful to see, and it's kind of reminded me of what I used to be like as well.
What about the rest of you guys? You guys seeing that?
It's really nice to see all those things, but briefly on the previous point, I think that the way we're going to see alphas utilized, and this has been more present in the minds of the wider EVE base, even though it's done before them, was when Brave Newbies really took heart to militarizing the new player and using them in the front line of soft campaigns. And then I think that alphas can definitely take form in more established alliances with Omegas in what the CFC at the time used to call the Fuck You fleet. which was just Blackbirds and Celestises. You just kept throwing them and just being giant pain. Obviously, extra tackle is always helpful. So I think in big set-piece battles, at least, the Alphas can have reign in terms of covering multiple grids. That becomes more difficult because we're looking at Svipples and fast but high-tech doctrines in, the T3s and the T2s. Tech 1s just really don't cut it at the moment.
In fact, I remember when PL was fighting Brave. I can't remember what it was. One of the Mimitar battleship doctrines you had. I think it was the Maelstrom.
It was Tempest Fleet.
Tempest Fleet. And I remember that, and Brave had a wing of like 200 people in like vigils and things like that, with tracking disruptors and all sorts of crazy businesses. And one guy posting a picture of their optimal range and fall off, and it was like 4 kilometers or something because this big blob of E-War frigates, Tech 1 E-War frigates, was just rolling around. So they can play an important part in any battle, so you're totally right.
Yeah, but again, it comes down to how many they can field. Like, it's they have to compensate for the low skills and the, I guess, less effective Tech 1 ships by just being massive numbers. So they have a place, but 20 alphas aren't going to do much.
To speak briefly to the point we saw about the rise in player numbers and that, we were kind of a bit, we might see it next week, whatever. I think that the Ascension launch is we're going to see 2 main spikes, not 1. Because we've got the one we're having now, where we're going up to the 40k approximately, as we were saying, probably go a bit higher than that in this weekend, when it's just come out, and there are a few gaming websites that are reporting on it. It's news kind of inside a certain gaming sphere. But what Falcon, I believe, said on Reddit, and hopefully this isn't incorrect, is that a lot of people are wondering why we haven't seen the mass marketing going out yet for Ascension. Like, you go to some non-Eve news website, we haven't seen it anywhere. And Falcon said on Twitter that, we decided that we'll release Ascension, spend however many weeks or whatever fixing all the inevitable bugs, and then when we know it's all tight and ready to go after having all the current players break it to bits as we are wont to, that's when the big marketing's going to hit. I mean, you're just going to see it everywhere.
Well, and it's also...
I got to see a bunch of the behind the scenes of that a few months ago when they were making the... if you remember the ad at Vegas of the ad with player voices, I was one of the people that did a bunch of recording for that. Sadly, I was not put in. Not bitter in any...
Tiberius was.
But yeah, so I think that we're going to see the first spike now, but I think that we're going to see a second... possibly even more than a second, but definitely an even larger spike when CCP goes, okay, it's time to press the marketing button on this and really go full bore.
Yeah, and it's also worth noting that we're kind of going into coding black season, where most of the people go out on holiday, and like things like, don't expect a software company to ship any software after December 10th until January 10th. Like, that's vacation time. People are out of the office. It's just not going to happen. So it's a rather smooth move to say, okay, well, we'll get all the bugs, we'll hot fix what we need to get through the holidays, and then coming in fresh in January when we're going to start the march towards FanFest and release new features and keep the hype train stoked. Then we can get a 1-2 punch for our marketing dollar.
I want Tiberius to finish this section so we can hear his lovely voice that was in that trailer.
I'll stop kissing my ass, Jesus.
Yeah, I'm glad you changed your words there. Potney, feel free to jump in and make sure you get your voice in there.
Well, if CCP would let me, no, it's fine. Tips, please.
I don't know. I don't know what else to say on that, but I know. I'm looking forward to, like Apophany, we went through the whole process. We kind of know a little bit about what they're doing, but it's going to be interesting to see the marketing that comes out of the back of that whole process, because we saw the beginning of it. So it's going to be interesting to see where they've taken it from there.
Yeah, I wonder if those are returning players or new players. We still don't know that combination of things. Definitely new players are out there, though. I've seen them. And one thing I wanted to talk about, and you guys can all discuss this, is don't feed the animals, right? Like, these are new players, and if you I saw this giant Typhoon, which is a battleship, big ship, parked in front of a newbie area where they're running their immersive missions, and the guy's lighting off fireworks, and he thinks he's doing something fine because he's saying, I'm just giving him a light show. But they don't know what's going on. It's too soon for that. Like, how much of this is too soon for the new people? Actually, Johnny, maybe you have some insight on this sort of thing.
I don't know about that, actually. My biggest thing with new players is that you shouldn't give them too much money.
Right. That's what I mean.
Totally.
Right.
Yeah.
Exposing them to
true.
big ships and fireworks is, it's on the little edge of being okay.
Well, 'cause
it
it
might freak
rattles-
some of them out.
Yeah, rattles the screen. They don't know what's going on.
But that's where I draw the line. Money and assets, I don't give them anything unless it's a very small amount. I think I gave a new player $1 million ISK, and to be honest, that's what they can earn an adventure in about a couple hours. So
When I was brand new, I found someone quitting in Corp Chat, or the NPC Corp Chat, and they actually gave me something between like 3 billion ISK, and that was when Plex was like 600 mil, and I just lived off that forever. And I don't think I actually like learned to make ISK and do things for myself until like 2 years in, just because I had that huge cash with which to do whatever I want.
Well, and I loved on Reddit, there was a great piece that somebody gave a brand new streamer who was coming by the game like 2 million ISK or 6 million ISK, like some really, really small number, and the guy was just floored, like, oh my god,
that was funny.
this is amazing, like, oh, you're adorable. Like,
It's actually it ties into the thing that was said in chat that you can only launch free to play once, and then it's out. So branding wise and marketing wise, it's dead. But that's not the point with this thing. And I think that many people misunderstand what this is. It's more akin to some, I don't know, bread and circus thing, that when stuff happens in EVE, when new stuff is introduced, new rollouts, new patches, new content in the other outside brands as well, players can actually just go and check it out. The door is now open. There's access to the forum. That's the point.
So to harp on again that point about not giving them tons of ISK. I mean, back when I was in uni, and then I experienced this of other friends who started playing the game. If you give them a bunch of money, like 100 mil, a couple hundred mil or whatever, a lot of people used to, when you got a Plex for somebody subscribing off of your buddy code, they'd give them like half the Plex value or whatever, is that your T1 frigates and cruisers become meaningless. Like, they're not exciting, they're not valuable, they mean nothing to you. You didn't have to go out and rat for an hour to get your Merlin, and then rat for another hour to get your Catalyst, and then move on and feel that progression. And one of the attitudes I really, really cannot stand in EVE is that hacks and above are the only ships that are relevant or meaningful, or that nullsec Sov warfare is the only gameplay that is relevant and meaningful. Say, oh, all gameplay styles are valid. You hear that harped on all the time, but so many people parrot that out but don't believe it, and they just are interested in a very small subset because a certain cash flow is kind of makes so much irrelevant for them, whereas anyone can tell you, and people who still are in this might say, oh yeah, T1 frigates some of the most fun in the game, out soloing in faction warfare space, but then they won't actually do themselves because it's not meaningful and it's not valid. They want to be in the, and they think, and their only perception of what is fun is the big fuck off fights and what have you.
Oh, faction warfare frigate fights are the freaking best. If you're not doing those, you really should. Even trying to be space rich, I find that way more fun. But like, one of the only counterpoint there is that I absolutely agree that you shouldn't be like throwing $1 billion ISK at a newbie. That's a bad idea. But helping them get that first or second ship killed and not have it be crushing, like there's some to be said about getting those PvP shakes and not doing the rage quit. Like that's the hard piece. So I'm all for supporting fleets and all for like, oh, here, take one of these and just come out on the fleet, and yeah, you'll die, but whatever. It was a free ship anyway, or something like that. And help people get over that first bit.
And to kind of remember, as once you get past that first part as well, and you have alliances that are starting to grow and form their connection, things like that, they all fly, the smaller lower skill doctrines, because they're still developing as a group. They're still like finding their feet. They're still putting their doctrines in the right place, what ships they want to fly. And I think it's easy for us to talk about the big metas, the big fights and the big ships that are used, because they are so prominent in a lot of the news that goes on. But there's so much more going on with the small group, and there's that whole journey in between, like the new players and going into their own groups, forming into medium-sized groups, getting into their new doctrines before they get onto the main stage that nobody ever hears about. And so, yeah, there's totally loads of stuff going on with ships that are Tech 1 cruiser and faction and all that sort of stuff that we just don't hear about. I'll push the conversation over to Pothny as well, because I believe you wanted to finish this one off.
Yeah, I was just say that if you want to share anything with new players, share your passion and your enthusiasm, because on Reddit and everywhere else we hear all the toxicity and all the like, oh yeah, Eve is dead because of this, oh yeah, this sucks, oh my god, CCP, you're so fucking stupid, like, oh my god, this game is terrible, oh, we just play this game because the game's shit, but the social bit is fun, but the game's shit, you probably should play. All that stuff, like, share your enthusiasm and your passion. Like someone like me who is hated by a lot of people, for example, I know it grates Matterall quite badly, but I'm relentlessly optimistic and enthusiastic, and I've built kind of like my D tier Eve personality fame on it, of just being the really happy guy that's enthusiastic and loves playing the game despite people being angry at it. So like if you're going to share anything with these new players, give them your time, share your experience, share the bit you love about the game with them. Like, tell them why you play it, tell them why you love it. Don't fall into the stereotypical apathetic nerd, making yourself feel better by putting something else down.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I loved the Vegas talk from, oh man, who was it? He did a whole talk on where always keep your passions, find new things and do new things. Big PL dude, right?
Elise,
thank you. And that was an excellent talk, and actually it means that I want to go write a thing about like join the dev fleet, because we're all just making it up and you could learn a useful life skill.
His presentation was eclipsed by Jay McLean's that was very emotional that came before it.
Oh yeah, indeed. That was a slap in the face.
Ended by the Space Pope himself, which was excellent too. So,
yeah,
I'd like to just add a small thing about the whole thing. That what I hope will happen with alphas is that the metrics of the player retention changes, right? Because we know that most people just drop it after like no time at all, and everyone that stays more than like 2 or 3 months tends to stay forever. Like some elevator mission thing. It's like, they don't leave. They always come back. The frequency is different, but once you are past that 3 month or 6 months thing where you are actually part of Eve, you never really leave.
Right about now, because we're taping this early Pacific time. Well, actually, it's probably midday Europe, but basically morning US, right?
More early evening. It's 3:30 in England, which means it's like 4:30, 5:30 in continental Europe.
So, where should we be as far as population? Is this a peak time, weekend, Saturday?
Give it another couple hours. So you've got like the EU rise, and then it dips slightly, then it goes a little bit higher again for US Prime.
Yeah, people go away for lunch and come back, and they start at early evening, and then you get a bit of a dip late evening, and then the US guys usually start logging on about 10 a.m.
Like honestly, I wouldn't look at this weekend stats until like Wednesday.
We're so close to breaking 40,000 people online at the moment.
It's like
so close.
It's like box office numbers.
Somebody's reporting that we've done it.
Yeah, we were 42 earlier.
I'd imagine the max numbers this week would be this maybe a couple of hours after now, but on Sunday.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I'd imagine.
Yeah, looking at the graph over the last few days, it's normally maxing out about 8 to half 8 Eve time.
One of the great things I've seen is a lot of streamers, both famous and not, shall we say, have seen the Eve going free to play and are using it as an opportunity to, this is the game I'm playing this week on my stream, like, you know, ones that hop between games. And just seeing all them try and do Eve is like, it's like going to the zoo and seeing all the different exhibits for the different personality types for all the people trying Eve, like the ones that get really angry, the ones that are really excited, the ones that just have no clue but are happy. Like, it's really great. Like, just like clicking between all the different streams on Twitch.
Yeah,
I'm trying to convince all of my general streaming friends up here to come back to at least do the make it a week thing.
Yeah, just do the NPE, do a couple missions, like hang out with some people. Like, it's really good. I'm trying to get my girlfriend to record herself doing the NPE for a bit of fun.
I can
We are
finally hang out with
literally just
major
the
Twitch
9
guys
ring
in
rates
town.
right now, right? With the comeback. There's 9 in audio.
So we're going to go another 20 minutes to the top of the hour. I wanted to ask if you guys have, like, let's say new people are actually made it this far into the show, which I doubt, you know, but maybe experienced players that are listening this far can tell new players. What kind of stuff do you, what kind of advice would you give new players as far as your career path?
Well, I actually agree a lot with the thing that Modern Inferno was writing on Imperium News recently, his life story, his 5 years of Eve. And it's really getting past that first noob stage where you start figuring things out and things start clicking, and then you get moved into the right location and start playing with the right people that fit you, and then you shift when you progress to something new. It's just stick with it for just a little bit longer, be patient. It's a very weird game, but once you get it, you get it.
My main point of advice is just join a corp. Like, you can participate and you can play and you can be knowledgeable at the game. I wrote for about a year or so before I actually joined a corp and really started getting involved. And the game just gets so much better when you have people to do it with. Even if you are fine on your own, definitely try a corp, whether it's just some guys in high sec or a huge block in null sec. Just find people to play with that have similar interests, and the game will become a lot better.
Yeah, that's a good point. Eve is the worst single player game, but it's the best social game. And then my piece of advice is don't go looking for permission. Just go freaking do it. There's a lot of great stuff out there, and a lot of people have opinions on doing it wrong or doing it right. And you know what trumps having an opinion about doing it is actually doing it. So you want to go be a market mogul, go start getting into it, dig into it. You want to go do weird solo PvP. CCP Rise proved that you can solo PvP and win reasonably big if you have the patience to go down that route. So don't be afraid to go try things. Just jump in, do the things. It's just space money. You can always get more space money, but you might as well get your time's worth.
And never be frightened to try out different things. Just because one thing in Eve isn't something that you might enjoy, try varying what you do. Try varying different things, because you will find something. Guaranteed, the scope of the game is so huge, you will find something that you enjoy doing, and then surround yourself with people that do the same thing as well.
When you find something you like, do the crap out of it, regardless of how much experience you have. Like, when I first joined the game, I went to Eve Uni, which is a great new player organization, and I went on my first fleet there. I thought, hey, that was awesome. Can I go on the next one? Is it like later this evening or maybe tomorrow? They said, oh yeah, our next one's next week. We look forward to seeing you there. I was like, yeah, no. So I just started doing fleets. And I've kind of made a career in Eve of kind of doing stuff I'm not experienced enough to do yet. So I did that with FCing, then I did that, casting the Alliance tournament and going to Iceland. Like, just if you just actively engage and do stuff, and if you're one of those people that, like, it's happy to be a follower like I am, but like only gets interested if you can actively engage with the game. Like, because what I'm saying is that because there are tons of people like join Horde and Brave, and they'll love being the F1 monkey in the fleet, and they like being part of the big thing, and that's their deal. But for me, I very much want to be engaged and really put myself and challenge myself in things. So find something you love and do the crap out of it. Find other people who love doing the crap out of it and do it with them, and then just keep going until you kind of burn out on that, and then find the next thing you love in the game and then do the crap out of that as well.
Yeah, all us experts are just making it up as we go along. We are not half as smart as you think we are.
Totally.
Even less so in some cases.
Yeah, that is actually right. I've only done very, very small scales PvP and not voluntary stuff way back in 05, 06, and since then I've been way too busy with other stuff, so I never got around to actually doing PvP again.
So most of the PvP that you have been involved in was
shit! Shit! Someone's shooting. I have to shoot back.
Yeah, I'm good at losing freighters. As my old corpmates would like to say, you have to put the guns on the outside.
Yep.
Yeah,
so yes, I'm getting into faction warfare, and I'm starting to do some PvP, and I will be terrible, and I will be completely destroying their stats. So that's fine.
I didn't say anything.
It was Lockfox.
So. I have something to say to new players if they're still here. I had a really good friend that I got into EVE Online when I started playing, actually. And due to the fact that he couldn't stop comparing EVE Online to World of Warcraft and all of its differences, he could not accept EVE Online for what it was. He just kept trying to make EVE Online into World of Warcraft in his mind. So eventually he quit the game out of frustration because he couldn't grind his players' level up. He could never compete with the more experienced players and their skill points. So I tried to convince him otherwise, that you can be good with a T1 frigate just as good as a 10-year player is, because of the amount of skill points that go into a frigate are capped at a certain point, right? You can't get better with a frigate past a certain amount of skill points. But of course, he kept comparing EVE Online to World of Warcraft. Players need to stop comparing EVE Online to other games and accept the game for what it is and not try and make it something else.
And don't fly purples.
Never.
Definitely not fly purples.
Well, for me, EVE Online was the very first MMO I actually played. So I just played the game with an open mind, and that's it. I use google.com a lot and guides and stuff. That's it. Freedom for everything. No one telling me what to do. No game system saying go here, do this. It was just me and my decisions, and I like that.
I'd like to plug Apophany on this because to me EVE is very much like D&D. You might get bored by at the game and not be very interested in actually playing the game, but the sessions are still hilarious, and you go there for the people.
I always found that it was the people.
The thing I find is, like, a lot of people say that for them the people is the best thing. That's not me. Like well, secondary possibly the people, but I think that you can join most groups and find a cool group of people to do stuff with. EVE players generally are pretty cool to hang out with if you are an EVE player. But for me, the primary thing that really keeps me here and compels me to play the game is the challenge, like the intellectual challenge, the skill challenge of designing new cool fleet comps that are fun to fly and effective, and when you're an FC versus another FC, outthinking them and outmaneuvering them and having your pilots outfly their pilots, and it's very much an intellectual challenge in many cases, like the epitome of which is the Alliance tournament, which I guess is why I'm so interested in that, like just theory crafting and working on group projects with cool people that you can teach but also learn from. I love learning from people in EVE. That's probably my favorite thing to do in EVE. Find someone who knows a ton more about me on a given subject, which is basically everyone about everything, and just listen to them. I love listening to Ashtarothi talking about lore. I love listening to Lockfox talking about Plex prices, listening to good FCs talk about Fleet stuff. Like it's wonderful just to sit and listen to someone who is really clever and really passionate just share their love and their enthusiasm with you. I love that so much.
Yeah, I got to echo Apothene on that. Eve hooked me because Eve is hard, unlike all the other MMOs at the time, and I've been playing over 10 years, where the depth just goes so deep. Where, oh well, I want to go own a market. Well, I can, but I need to go learn all the mechanics and master all the mechanics and get all these pieces together and do a bunch of extra work, learn a bunch of stuff on the way, and become that master. And there was a whole long journey to get there, and the sort of depth where, oh man, you guys should see how much dev fleet code I'm writing to bring the Eve Prosper thing into our new generation, so you guys can actually look at our data. Like, no game would be worth this kind of work, but Eve gives you the depth to go and do that kind of work, learn the kind of things, come back with actual skills rather than just being able to do your heal rotation correctly. Like there's a lot of useful. There's so much to do, and it never ends. It feels like a bottomless pit of things to do.
Yeah, it's not about getting to level 80 and having the best gear and you can do everything. It's about putting time and effort into a specific niche activity, learning to master it, putting assets into it, putting time and in-game value into it, and then you get the results. It's not just, oh, I'm level 80 now, I can do all the things.
The hook for me was a little bit different, but it was. There's all the depth there in the gameplay, but the hook for me was the depth in the history, the player history. There was I was reading about Eve long before, and the stories that happened long before I ever sort of actually started an account. Just hearing the history and all the interactions that people had. And I didn't really get to experience that myself in the game. I mean, I knew it was hard. I was prepared for it to be hard, and I spent a lot of time trying to master the mechanics like a lot of people do. But it didn't really click for me until the Battle of Asakai, which was my first serious engagement. And, it was a fight over a tower that a little faction warfare group that I was a member of at the time put up because we were trying to push into the area to take it away from the Gallente, because I was in the Caldari militia. And I didn't know anything about what was going to happen in that fight at all. When I just knew that we were going to go and fight Drunk and Disorderly because they were the ones that reinforced the tower, and we needed to save it because it was an important staging point for us. Went in there, the fight started, and before I knew anything that happened, it spiraled so completely out of control. And it was only until after that did I start to understand, when people were writing it up and writing about it, did I understand that all these connections, that all these sort of things happen, and just nothing like that happens at all in any other game. And that one instant is now part of my player history. That's an event that I can say I was a part of, and other people can turn and say, yeah, I was a part of that too. And, oh, we came in to help you guys out because this guy said this to us and this guy said that to us, and we thought, hey, why not? We want to get back at them because of this reason and all that sort of stuff. You just don't get that anywhere else, and that was when Eve really stuck for me.
Asakai was actually what brought me into the game.
Yeah.
The skill of it, like one person he jumped the levee and then it just spiraled out of control.
Just these things that tend to happen almost out of nowhere, like a spark, I mean, one of the things that I always found was really kind of interesting. I thought was kind of interesting as a game that actually develops yourself. Is the amount of real world transferable skills that you can essentially start to build on using this in this game. Like, I mean, in the same that Lockfox, you tend to. I show you. I mean, you say you write a lot of code for what you do, and I'm sure a lot of other industrialists do exactly the same thing. A lot of trade people trading here and then do the same thing. From an Intel perspective, I mean, I was a scout coordinator, Intel coordinator. Intel kind of gather kind of guy for a long time, and I always found that it was surprising the amount of information that this game kind of can deliver to you. Like so much that to the point you, in order to actually understand it in a decent kind of way, you almost needed to do a fair amount of data analysis in order to actually, develop trends, develop patterns, and kind of be able to predict certain things. And the skills in developing and doing that kind of stuff and writing that code, sort of developing that kind of side of your skill set, I always thought was surprisingly awesome that a game just a random computer game from Iceland would
from
push
Iceland.
people to would push people to developing those skills.
I think that kind of helped me like it. It's from Iceland.
Yeah.
It's obscure. Sci-fi from Iceland, of course. That totally makes sense.
Like dark metal and death metal.
Yeah.
And rotted shark. Sorry.
Well, I haven't been to FanFest, so I don't know about that, which I'm happy to report.
Two FanFests, I still haven't had the guts to try that yet. So.
All right, let's wrap up the show. I want to give Tiberius a chance to talk about any Eve meets that are going on, if there are any going on.
Yeah. I mean, there's plenty coming up over the next couple of weeks, I'd say. If you are near Newcastle and you play Eve Valkyrie, which everybody should know because Eve Valkyrie is on the PlayStation VR, the HTC, and the Oculus Rift now. So if you have a VR device, there's probably a chance that you can get access to Valkyrie.
Real quick, is it doing well or?
As far as I know, yeah. When it came out on the PlayStation VR, it was a tidal wave of new players that unlocked. Where the Oculus was a bit more, because of the price of the Oculus. Like you need to spend about £2,000, $3,000 to get a decent rig with the Oculus and everything else you need to play it. So that kind of restricted a lot of people. But apparently, when the VR came out and suddenly it was $350 to just get into VR, a massive swarm of new players come on, and it's been very, very busy. I haven't spoken to the VR guys, but if you want to actually find out more about the game, then go to Newcastle. I understand a few of the devs will be there because that's where Eve Valkyrie is made. It's at the central head of Steam, which is in the centre of Newcastle. You can find out more details on Eve Meet, including all the other bits and pieces for this on Eve Meet as well. That's kicking off tonight. In fact, it's kicked off an hour ago, so if you're in that area, you're not too late. Also today is an Eve Meet in Boston. So if you're in the Boston area at the Bit Bar, and that's Killeen, I think it is. That kicks off at 1900 local time. Then next week we have the big event for the Southern Hemisphere guys, Eve Down Under. That's happening in Sydney. So if you're in that area, I'm pretty sure you know all about that one, so I don't need to go on about that. But also the following day on the 26th of November at midday is a brand new meet in the UK, which is in Plymouth. Which is quite interesting. There's a brand new meet in Plymouth, so if you're in and around that area, go and check that out. There's further details for that on.
It's kind of a seaside town, isn't it?
It is, yeah. It's very much a seaside town. So that's a new one that's come up in the last few days. So if you're around that way, go check it out.
Thank you. So just some last notes from you guys. Anything you guys want to say to the audience before we take off?
Yeah, go watch EVE Online YouTube videos. There are a lot of new makers out there. I'm serious. A lot of new people popping up making EVE videos for the very first time. A lot of interesting content coming out. So get on YouTube, type in EVE Online, and see what pops up.
Well, actually, tell people
and if
how
you
they
want
can see your
to...
stuff, though. Hold on. Johnny, how can they see your stuff? Because your stuff's terrific.
Well, all I got to do is just Google my name, all one word, no H, and it'll pop up. It should. I'm the only one out there going by this alias, so.
Johnny Pugh. Okay. Caleb?
Well, I just wanted to say to anyone that's then watching all these things that if you want to try it out, to make content like that. Make your own videos, do your own streaming. Don't be afraid. Just get your OBS and start doing it. It's really simple.
Yeah, I should say everybody here, and Pothney, it looks like you're trying to climb into your screen there. It's kind of funny. Everybody here and everybody that you know that talks about Eve was, sitting there listening to other people talk about Eve before them. It's a generational thing. So get started now and start producing content that other people want to listen to. Especially the mid-level, I think, is a big area where people miss, because beginners help beginners basically. And experts all talk in their own, lingo. Right in the middle is that sweet spot for people that are about 6 months into the game that they're like, okay, I like the game. I know I like it. I want to get better at it. Where can I get information? Wow, I don't understand these experts. They're way too complicated. They talk in terms that I don't understand. So right in that middle section is definitely a nice place for people to try to talk to that. And I hope that people come out of the woodwork to do it.
Yeah, I just kind of want to...
Go for it, sorry.
Throw out the fact that, like, even if you're an alpha who's just joined the game, that doesn't mean that you can't, like, write or podcast. Like, TCP and, like, just the community, we need more, like, new bro perspectives, because all of us have been playing for years, and it's kind of hard for us to, like, really envision what the tutorial is for the first time. So if you're an interested alpha, just get out there, do something, write podcast, shoot somebody a mail. It'll be really good.
Yeah, the ability to just do things, like, I love watching a lot of the people figuring it out, on that road to becoming experts. Some of my favorite stuff is like watching on the Neocom. They're doing weekly reports on their economic work, which has been just really great to read. And coming up from the piddly failures of, I lost another ship because I didn't know to turn on my afterburner or something, to I'm totally killing people and I'm an amazing guy. That progression is always fun to watch.
Yeah, it's true. Like, I would say that like, when it comes to the community, when it comes to CCP, the genuine new player perspective is exceptionally valuable to us and to CCP. So, like, if you're willing to share that, that experience, it would be welcome with open arms.
Well, and that's what I meant when I said don't feed the animals. Like, these guys, they can do for themselves. You don't want to take away their ability to get one more little victory by giving them, 5 million or 10 million, whatever. Let them have those small victories, because that's what they cling on to as they start to get entrenched into building themselves in the game. I think that's a big part of it. Well, we reached the end of the show. I want to thank all you guys for showing up. We had a big show. We had 10 people in here, and it worked out really well, I thought. Lots of nice points of view from different people. It was civil, except in the chat, right? We had some technical difficulties because we changed over to OBS, and so that's obviously, it takes a little bit of a learning curve to change the technology and stuff like that. But I've seen what it can do, and we're going to have some amazing things coming in the next episodes, up until Christmas and stuff. But for now, I want to say thanks again to our panel and guests, and to our audience members. If you're listening to this on podcast, remember that there is a Patreon/Matterall, that helps finance the podcast so they can keep getting deployed after the shows are over. All right, thanks, guys. That's it for us. We will see you next week.
Good night.